Hey everybody, my name is Adonai. I just finished working on this troubleshooting project and I thought it would be a good opportunity to discuss static routing and route summarization. Um, Basically, I just want to point out that we have four routers here and we have three networks between them. We have 192.168.10.0. We also have .20 and we have .30. So basically, the job of a router, which we have to explain first, we're going to explain static routing, is to forward packets across the network. And how it does that is it looks at its routing table to understand where it needs to forward the packet to next. So if router 0 receives a packet destined for router 3 on the .30 network, it has to inspect its routing table to understand how to do that. So if we take a look at router 0, let me scroll up to the routing table. We can see here that straight off the bat, usually when you get a new router and you take it out of the box and you plug it in, it only knows how to reach the networks that it's directly connected to. And you can see here the two entries, the C and L entry. The C is the connected route, so it's directly connected to the 10.0 network because of this interface that has been configured with the 10.1 address. So if you wanted to send a packet to router 1, which is configured with the IP address 192.168.10.2, you could do that. But if you wanted to reach router 3, you would need to configure a static route. So you have to configure a static route to the 192.168.30.0 network via router 1. And then from there, router 1's routing table would handle the packet and figure out where to forward it from there. But since router 1 isn't directly connected to router 3's network, the .30 network, you'd also need to configure a static route on router 1, so router 1 would know to forward it to router 2. And since router 2 is directly connected to the .30 network, router 2 would know to forward that packet out to the .30 network via its G001 interface. But if you examine my routing table for router 0, you might notice that I don't have a static route to the .30 network. Basically, during this troubleshooting project, the instructions told me that I should implement route summarization wherever I see fit. And so I thought it would be a good idea to implement that on router 0 and router 3 because there's only one way for them to forward any packets if they receive packets that are addressed to networks that aren't directly connected to them. What route summarization is it's essentially a method of combining multiple static routes into one, which cuts down on the size of the routing table and reduces processing load because the router doesn't have to make as many decisions on where to send the packet. I think it makes sense to implement router summarization on router 0 and router 3 because each of them are only connected to one subnet on the network. So otherwise you would have to configure two static routes. In router 0's case, you would have to configure a static route to the .20 network and the .30 network. A case where it doesn't make sense to implement route summarization is on router 1 and router 2 because both of them are connected to two of the three networks, two of the three subnetworks on the network. So you would only need to configure one static route on each of them. So on router 1, for example, it's directly connected. If I pull it up here, it's directly connected to the .20 network over here and the .10 network over here. So you'd only need to implement a static route to the .30 network, which I have here via the .20.2 G000 interface on router 2. To explain how route summarization works further, the way that this route works in particular is basically whenever this router receives a packet destined for any 192.168 network, because it has this /16 subnet mask and these 16 bits are set to 0. Whenever it receives a route to any 192.168 network, it will forward that out to the G000 interface on router 1, and then from there router 1 will take care of it with its router table. If it needs to reach router 3 on the 30.2, or not the 30.2, on the .30 network, it has a static route configured, and then if it needs to reach dot 20, it's already connected, so it doesn't need a static route there. I hope that was a clear explanation on how routing tables and route summarization works. So I'm just going to wrap things up there.